My God, has it been 11 years now? No, more than that. That was 2011, so it's been um, 13 years that I have been using social media uh, as as a platform to allow me to be an advocate for black men. When I initially filed my divorce, what I quickly realized was that nobody really had any sympathy for men who were enduring divorce. Nobody cared that we've been separated from our children. Nobody cared that although we were the primary earners of in the family, nobody cared that our houses could be taken away from us along with our children, that we would be forced to pay child support. This is back in 2010, actually, so it's been 14 years. And so what ended up happening was during the time I was dealing with my divorce, I went to the internet. And then the time thereafter, in actuality, I believe it was like 2014, I actually start going to the internet and I began to discover online personalities like BGS and some of the other male-oriented content creators, black male-oriented content creators. And I quickly realized that I wasn't the only one. Um, it was when I began to go to the internet that I began to see, or my eyes were open to the social politics and what we call the gender war. Because at that point, I thought it was just me dealing with this. I didn't know that it was all these other men who were having the same issues, not just black men, but men in general. So what I did was, at that time, being a prominent young attorney in the Houston area, very popular, I decided to open up my Facebook page for people to voice their opinion, specifically for men to voice their opinion, specifically black men to voice their opinion about the current state of society. And I would literally just cut and paste their comments and put them on my page and force people to deal with them. Um, there's some great guys that still follow me and remember those times early on. So 2010, 2011, my divorce was final. By 2014, I had begun to travel overseas. Well, actually around 2012, I began to travel overseas. And so I used social media as a historical or electronic documentation system to chronicle my travels and my experiences and the people I interacted with and the places that I went. And it has now been 14 years. I believe it was more or less late 2000s. I believe November 2020 is when I first began to broadcast on YouTube. And what that did was it opened me up to a younger audience, because at that point Facebook had begun to kind of fall off a little bit. But a lot of the people who followed me from Facebook, or a lot of the people who followed me on Facebook migrated over to my YouTube page. Same guys, uh, same sort of issues, but we were dealing with a younger generation. Um, and so it was at that point I went from being a person who was dealing with issues and used social media to help me vent and understand and even emote, to being an advocate for black men around about 2014, or actually around about 2018. Uh, no, 2017. I'm sorry about the dates, but I'm doing this on the fly from my backyard. So it's not like I have anything, in front of me for reference. But yeah, 2017, I recall sitting on a terrace in a home that I was renting at the time in Torre Alta, community of Puerto Plata in Dominican Republic. And it was a beautiful day, kind of like today, and I was looking out at the ocean. And I recall feeling guilty about the fact that I had made it. I had a beautiful woman in the kitchen cooking for me. I was overlooking the ocean. I was living well. And then I began to remember all the black men who I had encountered on the internet since 2010, and 7 years at that time, dealing with all the issues that I've been dealing with. And I felt guilty. I felt really guilty because here I am in paradise enjoying myself, and these black men are back in the United States of America, in the Matrix. Somebody type Matrix in the chat room. They're stuck in the Matrix, and they don't have anybody who's speaking up for them. Because at that time, it was still unpopular to advocate on behalf of black men. Those of you guys who know me know I will always take the difficult job. I'll always take the unpopular position if it means pushing the culture forward, pushing the argument forward, and in the pursuit of justice and what's right. And so I took it upon myself, and those of you guys who were with me, you will remember, I dedicated my Facebook page solely for black men. I literally only allowed black men to communicate. It was a place where men could come and speak openly and not be ridiculed for their suggestions, for their feelings, for their thoughts, for voicing their opinions. And it became a sanctuary. In doing that, I became very unpopular with a lot of people, specifically the lovely ladies, black American women, many of my family members, and mind you, this is before anybody knew anything about red pill content or anything like that. This is just guys. I went from having a page where men voice their opinion to a page where I advocated on behalf of black men. I spoke up for them. I spoke on behalf of people like Chris Brown, Bobby Brown, James Brown, Bill Cosby, all the people that black folks were willing to throw away, all the people that were being publicly lynched, black men that were being publicly lynched. I used my page as an advocate. I used my attorney skills. For you guys who don't know, I've been practicing law going on 25 years. So I use all my wisdom, all my skill set to be an advocate for black men. Now, the thing you have to understand is this is a natural outcropping, not just from the fact that I'm a black man, but also because I have 3 black sons. And when they grow up, well, the day they turn 18 years old, they're going to inherit these negative tropes and stereotypes that are going to be placed upon him. And they're totally innocent. And I know that there are other men out there. Not all of us are derelicts. Not all of us are degenerates. Not all of us are ex-cons. Not all of us are abusers. But what they'll do is they'll pick one black man who's exhibited some bad behavior, and they'll use that to throw all of us under the bus. And what I wanted to do is begin to say, okay, well, if you're going to do that, you're going to try to pick one black man to throw all of us under the bus, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all my skills and all my wisdom to defend that man. And I'm going to make it harder for you, because if he goes, so do we. And so I began to advocate on behalf of black men. I began to push the narrative of why it wasn't us and why it wasn't them. And, it's like defending somebody who's committed or who has allegedly committed a heinous crime. People don't like you for it. Nevertheless, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, I was very busy on Facebook. And so people kept saying, well, you should join YouTube. And although I had a YouTube channel, I just really wasn't interested in social media. I was busy traveling and enjoying life. I did decide to come back to the United States. Of course, I was having a blast, but I always had black men and their plight in the back of my mind, because unlike our brothers from Jamaica and Trinidad and the Caribbean and Nigeria and Ghana and all these other African countries, we don't have any place to go. This is the only place that we have. And so because of that, it's incumbent upon those of us who can to make this place as safe and habitable as we possibly can. So in order to do that, you have to understand that we as black men, or as any group of men, we live and die by our reputation. One thing that Kevin Samuels had in common with me is that we understood that we are going to win on, on the emotions, and the emotions have a lot to do with our reputation. And so we as black men have to defend our reputation. Kevin and I agreed on that 100%. Although there are some minor points that he and I disagreed with on as far as relationship and such, we were 100% of the opinion that we have to defend black men and their reputation, because if we don't, then we get dehumanized. And when we get dehumanized, then people can do stuff like over incarcerate us. They can target us for incarceration. They can call us thugs. They can call us super predators. And then when we're being wronged, nobody's going to pay attention. They're going to say, oh, well, that's just those super predators. We've been demonized and vilified to the point that nobody feels any empathy for us. So it's important that people like me use my voice to advocate on behalf of black men. Now, that said, moving forward, I moved into the realm of YouTube. For you guys who know, I've already, because I had years of practice on Facebook, I already understood the talking points. I already understood what was on people's minds. I always understood what was on men's minds, as far as relationships, as far as pretty much anything that, as I always say, this guy, you guys say, shout out to Buddy the Orange Cat. I mean, Buddy, I purposely put my back against the wall so you couldn't walk through the picture, okay? And now you've come over here. Buddy needs his airtime. So, you guys, somebody type Buddy the Orange Cat in the chat room. It never fails. I mean, this guy, I don't even know. He must have been reincarnated. He had to have been some sort of actor or something like that. But nevertheless, back to the conversation here. So we have to defend our reputation. It's incumbent upon us to do that. If we don't, then it allows for anybody to come in and paint a narrative of us. And so for as far as black men, the attacks that we're dealing with, we're still the thugs. We're still the criminals. They've gone a long way to try to erode our masculinity. They've tried to make black men who used to be the epitome of masculinity, now they're trying to make us out to be a bunch of closeted rainbow affiliates, okay? And so it's important for, and of course there's always the deadbeat dad narrative, which has been rebuffed over and over again. But nevertheless, what I try to do on my page is not only be an advocate for black men, but I also will post videos of myself interacting with my children, my sons doing masculine things. I'll show you what life can be like in a family setting, and then I'll also show you what life can be like as a man who's out and about living life in this country, that country, even at home. I'll even do things like demonstrate martial arts or boxing techniques or lifting weights, these sort of things, because it helps change the narrative. It helps. You got an intelligent black man who's an excellent father doing masculine things with his son and on his own. It helps change the narrative. It doesn't have to be a perfect picture, but it helps change the narrative. What you all have to understand, and I'm going to kind of segue off into something else. One of the main problems that I have with modern day pro-blacks, I'm not talking about the UEP Newtons. I'm not talking about the Malcolm X's. I'm not talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's. I'm not talking about Minister Louis Farrakhan's, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. I'm not talking about those men. I'm talking about the modern day pro-blacks. I'm talking about your Dr. Boyce Watkinses. I'm talking about your Dr. Umar Johnsons. I'm talking about these individuals. your typical hotep, right? These gentlemen, what I find about them is this. They claim to be pro-black, but what they will often do is throw black men under the bus when it gets down to it. Because see, they recognize that they need to remain on the good side of African American women. They can't ever hold them accountable, because if they hold them accountable, then those women will then attack them, and then that will undermine their source of income. I find that disingenuous. You have black men like Dr. Umar Johnson telling other black men, I'm going to revoke your black card if you date interracially. You have people like Dr. Boyce Watkins is, basically attempting to vilify black men for bringing to black women's attention that they are responsible for some of their activities, things that are directly personal to them, like the out of wedlock birth rate and these other things. And of course, we all know that, black women and women in general don't like to be held accountable. Somebody type accountability as kryptonite in the chat room. And shout out to everybody who's contributing to the super chat, the Cash App, and the PayPal. I thank you guys so much. And I know when I'm in the backyard, I don't have an opportunity to really call out your names and everything, but I see you, I appreciate you. But as long as we can, keep this thing going, and as long as the messages are getting clear and you guys are liking and subscribing to the channel and contributing super chats, I know you're there. I see you. I appreciate you. Shout out to all my guys who've been here. That being the case, these modern day pro-blacks, they push a female-oriented narrative that empowers black women and throws black men under the bus when it's convenient. Anybody with any common sense will tell you that the black men, strong, masculine, dominant black men in leadership is the only way that we will have a black male community, that we will have a black community in the United States. You will only have a viable black community in the United States if you have a black male leadership class in the black community, not one that's subject to what black women want and their whims. How do I know this? Well, look at the last 60 years in the black community. African American women have been the backbone of the community. They've been in leadership positions, and it has totally failed. There is no black community at this point. There are no strong families at this point. We went from the most married group of people in the 1950s, when the black man was the head of the household and we had intact families, to being one of the most unmarried group of people, most out of wedlock birth rate. So what that tells me is this: these so-called modern day pro-blacks are disingenuous. They're not in it for the black community. They're in it for the profits. They're in it for the proceeds. That's what they're here for. Because if they really wanted to save the black community, they would empower black men. They would help protect the image of black men. They would push positive narratives about black men, and they would begin to hold black women accountable. But they won't do it because they're cowards. They're cowards in that they don't want to risk the chance of offending black women. And so in not doing that, they always have to find an excuse. And many of these men are very hypocritical. I look at Dr. Umar Johnson, and he's constantly telling black men that they should marry these single baby mothers, but he himself has created 2 single baby mothers. Why is it that he hasn't married his baby mother? I mean, he hasn't given an excuse. I'm sure there may be some excuse or reason why, but he hasn't. On the flip side, we have Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I watched we've watched him over the years. and we've seen several missteps on his part. We've seen some lapses in judgments as related to the Tulsa, Oklahoma Fund. I believe that's what it's called. We've seen some lapses in judgments in how he interacts with some of the other black female podcasters that have associated themselves with him. And so a lot of these missteps dictate or indicate to me that we have someone who has poor judgment and poor discernment, and or may have ulterior motives. And I think those motives are monetary, meaning that I don't think he sincerely is interested in the well-being of the black community. Because again, anybody with good sense will tell you, you don't have a community unless you have strong black men leading those communities. And in order to have strong black men leading those communities, you have to begin to tell black men, hey, you need to take control of this. You need to tell these women to sit down. You need to, that you got it, and you need to step up and do it. You can't constantly be pandering to these women and empowering them and telling them everything they do is perfectly acceptable when you know that it's not. And anybody in law enforcement will tell you that at this particular point, black women are becoming a target. You guys don't believe it? Recently, there's a former black female prosecutor in Baltimore. I don't recall her name at this time, but she is being prosecuted. You see, excuse me, I'm outside, so it's all kind of creepy crawlies out here, and I don't know what's on my back, but Marilyn Mosley is her name, by the way. She's being prosecuted down in Fulton County, Georgia. You have Fannie Willis being prosecuted. What does that show you? Pretty soon you're going to have the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, being prosecuted. These high-powered, high-positioned African-American women are being targeted. So what does that tell you? It tells you there's an appetite in society to prosecute black women, and they'll start at the top and they'll work their way to the bottom. Why? Because we have a group of women who are out of control. We have a group of women whose men have not been strong enough, starting with their so-called leadership, to talk about their behavior and save them from themselves. We have a group of so-called modern day pro-blacks, and I call them modern day because I dare not align them with the great El Hajj Malik El Shabazz and all these other folks who really were pro-black, who really wanted the interest of black people to be put first. No, these men don't want that. They want the interest of themselves to be put first, in my opinion. And if that means throwing black men under the bus, and by the way, these black men themselves, they don't realize they're throwing themselves under the bus, because in undermining other black men and our character and our abilities, they're basically giving ammunition to the women and anybody else who's listening to attack us with that same rhetoric. And so it's a self-defeating loop, and it makes no sense for any logical man to do it, especially educated men, unless they have some ulterior motives, and I think that is self-interest. But bottom line is, fellas, I'm your advocate, and my self-interest are purely for survival. I understand that anytime one black man's reputation is attacked in this country, that's all of us. So whether you like it or not, you don't like me defending Sean Combs and said that there should be some fault allotted to Cassie, recognize that the rest of the world sees Sean Combs as black first. All of his other crimes are secondary. And when they see you as black first, and they align you with him. And so there needs to be a voice out there in the wilderness who is advocating on behalf of black men, pointing out, well, hey, what about this? What about the fact that Cassie had a good man, and she left that good black man for this black man because she had her own interests. Well, Chris Brown, well, he was just a young man, and this woman allegedly struck him while he was driving his vehicle, and he simply responded as a young teenage boy would. What about him? The young brother up in New York who was just convicted, the actor, I'll call him Kang the Conqueror. I forget the brother's name, Jonathan Majors. The fact that all he was trying to do was push the woman off him and put him back in the car. You need somebody out there who's pointing out the alternative narrative that liberates or frees black men from all of these horrible, heinous allegations. And you need somebody also that black men can say, hey, yeah, I want to be a masculine, I want to be a masculine, educated black man who's a good father. We need those narratives so you can point to them. And as it is right now, there's not a whole lot of men that do that 100% of the time. You got a lot of so-called podcasters and a lot of talking heads on the internet now, okay, because it's popular now. But you got a lot of people who sometimes they'll advocate on behalf of black men, but they won't do it all the time. I am 100% all the way, all the time on the side of black men. That's where I am. That's why 99% of my following is black men. I don't deviate. Now, if I wanted to roast you brothers, let me give you that double blank. If at any day I wanted to, prosecute you brothers for your social behavior, for your degeneracy, for your lack of demonstration of masculinity and standing up for yourselves, I would. And I would have a field day. And I promise you brothers would hate me with every little bit of your hearts because I would be excellent at it. But the reason that I don't do that is because there are literally hundreds of thousands of other people out there doing it. You got the media doing it, whether it's radio, whether it's movies, whether it's television, whether it's print. You have podcasters doing it on a daily basis. We don't need another person piling on black men. More important, it does not serve my interest to attack other black men, especially knowing that all that's going to do is come back to me and my sons. At the end of the day, and I've told you brothers this before, my interests are purely self-concerning. I know that whatever happens to you happens to me, because at the end of the day, no matter what grade of hair I have, no matter how green or hazel my eyes are, a little bloodshot right now, no matter what, I'm still a black man living in America, and so are my children. And so we are all in this together. That said, there's a lot of you brothers out there, when I post videos up, you got critiques. When I make statements, you have critiques. You always want to play the devil's advocate. When I say things about how this woman may have been at fault for Jonathan Majors, or Cassie may have been at fault for the P. Diddy situation. She may have brought it on herself in some regards. You will take on the female talking points and you will then come attack me. And what you're doing is you're attacking your own advocate. Let me run that by. If we were in court and I was defending you from criminal prosecution, and you jumped up and said, oh no, I did that. I did stab him. Yeah, I did stab him. I stabbed him between the second rib and the third rib, and then I cut up. People would think you're an idiot. And as you attack me for defending other black men, people think you're an idiot. Now, we may not be in the courtroom, but we are in the court of public opinion. And when you have black men attacking other black men who are defending black men, you look like an idiot. You're off code in that regard. The best thing to do when you see someone defending someone that looks like you, even if you don't agree, just remain silent. You're not going to get any cool points from these ladies for speaking up, even though they'll try to shame you. They'll say real men would speak up and real men would be, all real men would be advocates. As far as I know, at this point, real men can't use forks anymore based on some of the latest internet troll. They got this one young lady who says that she finds it feminine when men chew their food. Another one says she finds it feminine when men send their text messages with correct spelling. In other words, she wants you to speak broken English when you send text messages, or she deems you somehow less masculine. And this is why we don't allow women to define what manhood is or masculinity is. That is something that is solely the purview within the purview of men. And so, you know, that's just how that's going to work. And as far as women, men are the consumers of women. And if men decide that they what they want in women is a fit, feminine, beautiful woman, then that's just something that women have to deal with. That's a double standard. Yeah, yes, what I'm saying, ladies, we get to define you because we are the ones that are attracted to you, and you can't force attraction, but you don't get to define us because we are men and we define what masculinity is. Nevertheless, fellas, it's just odd when I have to respond to black men, and for the most part, it's just black men. And it's not all. If I get 1,000 comments, there's always going to be one or two guys who have something to say. It's all, I'm putting videos up of me boxing because why? Because the alternative is black men walking around with skirts on, black men crying on TV. By contrast, you got this black man who's boxing out here lifting weights. These are images that are broadcast to the world. It's the same thing I did during my Facebook years, and I'm still active on Facebook, but it helps change the narrative. So it's pointless for you to critique it. Nobody cares about your advice. I truly don't listen to it. I'll respond so that you can force you to respond so that you have to then listen to yourself. But I don't need your help. Neither do these other men who are advocating on behalf of black men. They don't need your help. If I wanted someone's help, I would pay an expert to advise me. Okay. Nevertheless, fellas, again, like I said, you know, this whole thing that we have, this social media is new. This is the first time that people from around the world can have interaction with each other. But what I want to do is use it to help preserve the humanity and reputation of black men. I don't like the pro-blacks. I don't like the modern day pro-blacks, of course. You know, I have great respect and admiration for those men and women who came before us, who advocated on behalf of black people and black people's rights and black people's dignity and black people's natural rights. But these modern day people, they're really just, they have their own agenda. And anytime I find, you know, somebody who considered themselves pro-black, when you dig right below the surface, they're really pro-black female. They're not pro-black family. They're definitely not pro-black man. And so you have to understand who you're dealing with. And so, you know, these are my thoughts on this subject. For any of you all who are confused, it's not that I hate black women or anybody. I don't hate anybody. It's that sometimes advocating on behalf of one side and remaining on that side means you're going to offend people on the other side. And if black women are constantly opposed to the position of black men, if they constantly want to throw us under the bus and call us deadbeat daddies and tell us that we are horrible names like bullet bags, then you're going to have somebody defend them. And invariably, I'm going to step on your toes. And I'm going to continue doing it. I'm going to continue doing it until it's unnecessary. Nevertheless, when black women talk about how horrible black men are, and guess what? You fight fire with fire. And so that's why I talk about the degenerate behavior that many African American women have succumbed to in this modern day culture that we have, this modern women culture, which says anything goes. And so this is how it goes. And at any point when the ladies decide that they are ready to be quiet and they're ready to stop attacking black men and our reputation, I'll be quiet. But until then, me and the hundreds and thousands of other black men who are not going to sit by and just let you destroy our humanity, destroy our reputations, and otherwise assassinate our character in public, we're not going to be quiet. This is not going to go anywhere. It wasn't a gender war until black men got the microphone. It wasn't a gender war until social media popped up and black men were able to use social media to broadcast our point of view to the world. I've been doing this for 14 years. 10 years on Facebook, and 4 years on YouTube. And so I've seen the change. I see progress being made. We have laws now that criminalize women for DNA fraud. We have laws now that allow men who are wrongfully forced to pay child support for children that are not theirs. We have laws against that now, or there's retribution that can happen. We have laws. We are making progress. Black men know that they're no longer just trapped in the United States. They can be global if they want to. Black men can now, somebody type passport bros in the chat room. Somebody type global kings in the chat room. Black men know that they have options now. All of this is because of social media. It's because we're talking and we're communicating, and you have black men who are advocating on behalf of other black men in their own way. Some advocate by saying, well, just go overseas. Some advocate by taking a direct action and say, no, that's not true. Some advocate by attacking those who will attack us, fighting fire with fire. I happen to do all three. But again, we as black men must begin to advocate on behalf of ourselves. And you can't attack the people who are trying to save your reputation, because it's literally your life that is on the line. So fall back, fellas.